So today the topic is definition of, and even more importantly, an understanding of this new buzzword, this new phenomenon, if you will, leaky syndrome. What is leaky syndrome and how did it come to be, actually? Well, nobody better to tell you than Laura Hooper and myself, because we were there the day it happened. We were there. It's historical, Laura.
It is. I mean, Dr. Pritchard, you always say come out with these amazing one-liners. And that's literally what happened. I kept saying, people don't understand leaky gums is leaky gut. Everybody wants to argue with me about, antibiotics and the things that we're doing that, right? It's going everywhere. And they need to understand that if their mouth is in dysbiosis, their gut is in dysbiosis. And then there you come, Dr. Pritchard. As always, she's like, it's leaky syndrome. It's everywhere. Leaky gums is leaky gut, is leaky heart, is leaky brain, is leaky liver, is leaky kidney. I mean, I just loved it. And it was like instant, like that makes sense. And I just feel like I remember I was always telling people, it's like, Dr. Pritchard and her slides. I have like leaky gums, this leaky gut, and I'm trying to write all this. And so you just take your thing and you write over the top leaky syndrome. And I was like, Miss Perfectionist over here, hygienist. I'm like, I can't see what's behind it, all the words and her typing on. I mean, that's how I remember. I just remember it like so profoundly of like, wow, the light bulb even went on for me as I was trying to write all these organs out. And you just beautifully was like, hey,
Mm-hmm.
leaky syndrome. It's that simple. Like for you, it's like, it was that simple.
Yeah, and I think it was a light bulb moment for me too, because I'd actually been thinking about that as you and I had several conversations leading up to that, talking about how it's such a similar concept of what's happening in our blood vessels. Oh, well, that's a similar concept of what's happening with varied reasons for dementia, whether it's vascular related or it's Alzheimer's type or glucose toxicity type or brain injury. Did I already say that? There's 5 types of dementia. Some people say 6. It depends on how you categorize them. But anyway, all of those have a similar, we call it pathophysiologic. Physiologic or physiology means the normal functioning of the body. And then pathophysiologic or pathophysiology is something that should be occurring in a certain way because it's healthy. Then it's now pathologic. It's not occurring in a healthy way. It's occurring in an unhealthy way, or it's going that direction. So we saw this shift from what Laura calls creating health to fighting disease. We were somewhere in the middle of that. And it's like, at the same time, we were in the middle of wanting to change the whole paradigm from naming the disease, finding the disease, naming it, applying a ICD-10 code, and treating it with a pill or a procedure. We wanted to move away from that to, yes, we know this is going on, this disease process, but creating health to eradicate the disease while we're treating the disease and thinking of the body as an entire human system. While we were having all of those conversations, then we were also having these very nitty-gritty cellular level conversations about what's happening with these cells, and the immune system is doing this to try to resolve a problem in the artery wall or in the gingivitis or periodontitis or in the GI tract. And it was a recurring theme because, as you said, once you have all of the contributors to the problem of either leaky gums or leaky arteries or anything, your whole body is affected and you're moving towards disease and away from health. So anyway, leaky syndrome seemed to fit. So we claim it. That's for sure. Remember the day it went down, and you remember the day I messed up your slides. Like it has to go on there.
Everything that we talk about. I mean, I love starting at the top when we talk about airway to pathogens to plaque, but it's like now it really clicks. We were really putting that structure together of like, okay, well, it starts up top. It starts in the airway. If I have a leaky airway,
Yeah.
breathing out
Right.
of my mouth and not using my nose, then I'm starting to get leaky gums. What is that? Well, I'm in dysbiosis. I'm changing the bacteria. Those bacteria release toxins, pulling the membranes apart. Oh my gosh. And then you're like, we're lined, your whole claim tongue to tail that
Yeah.
we're lined with epithelium. So we're swallowing these bacteria. Now we're in dysbiosis in the gut. And that's leaky gut. That same toxin is just pulling that epithelium apart. And then I love because then you're like, oh my gosh, it's in the bloodstream. And then it's in the endothelium and it's uncoupling, which is leaking our whole endothelium, our whole vascular system. And then we talk, it's like, and then we literally went to every organ. And that's what I
Everyone.
think is so important is like, I have leaky lungs. I have, leaky pancreas. I have a leaky liver. I have a leaky kidney. And so many of these things you see and we look at in our patient care. We see it on the blood work. So I think that's what's so important is that, as you coined that, as we went all the way and worked our way all the way back up to the brain, leaky blood-brain barrier, right? And like you said, there's so many other things, but just understanding this was what you coined as the leaky syndrome. It's a syndrome that's taking place. And really, it's like a cascade effect. That's almost how I try to explain it to most people is, depending on where it's starting, but it's just becomes a syndrome because it's cascading throughout the body.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. And obviously, I did like keep pushing for it until the point that I put it on your beautiful slide and messed up your slide. But I would have never gotten there if we hadn't have just persisted with these conversations. Because as we teach our students, our colleagues that come to hear how to incorporate these things into their practices, and as we talk to patients together all the time, we kept hitting our head against the wall about some of these similar occurrences. And so I think it's just shows the power of dental teams and medical teams working together on not only a care plan for the patient in front of us to achieve the best health for that patient, but also on a more global level of having these conversations around we need new terms, we need a new understanding. We've gotten way too separated, way too reductionistic. And so anyway, this is one term that I hope will help us all to see the body as one system and this phenomenon as a body-wide problem that requires, we say, a dental hygienist and a nurse practitioner to save your life. Requires a Laura Hooper and a Gina Pritchard type practitioner that, as our friend and colleague Whit Wilkerson keeps saying, that will keep asking why until you can't ask why anymore, because his mentor, Pete Dawson, kept saying, we're going to continue to search for a better way. And if there's a better way, we're going to go find out who's doing it the very best, and we're going to incorporate that because we want to do the best thing for the patient. So finding those colleagues and those people in your life, if you're a patient and not a healthcare colleague, that want to join forces together, because it's speaking a new language, kind of, but in a way, Laura, it's also taken us back to some older vernacular, if you will, that before disease management took over our lives, we find ourselves talking a lot about breathing techniques, right? And about meditation and mindfulness and growing your own food. And not that all of these things have to be incorporated or incorporated tomorrow. We make it very enjoyable and very easy to take the next step. But I'm saying a lot of things that healthcare providers and healthy individuals practiced years ago, things our grandmother or great grandmother might have mentioned, are coming back around, aren't they?
They are. And I think that has a lot to do with, why we gravitated to the leaky syndrome is what we started with. And you started talking about is that I always tell people, in our patients, like, I'm not so much focused on the disease. Like, we know the leaky syndrome. It's like you said, it's like the totality of care. It's the entire patient that it's occurring. I'm more focused on how do I create health? So disease, dis-ease shows up when we lose health. So where did we lose health? And if we're losing health everywhere, we got to keep going back to that root cause. And like you said, some of the biggest causes of, I say, losing health is in just what you're talking about, the stress of life. And we've gotten away from, you talk about that, and we're going to be talking about that in the 5-day challenge, but how important some of these aspects are to daily life, daily practice that we've just lost. In our busy, chaotic, processed world that keeps moving that direction. I do think it's going to become more and more important that if we really want to not be leaky and not continue to have a leaky syndrome going on, is that how do we repair that? How do we get back to health?
Yes. And if you want to answer that question for your own life or bring it into your practice, then of course, you want to follow Laura and I on YouTube. You want to come to our next course, come to our next challenge. We have master classes out there. So we are trying to get the word out to the general public and to our healthcare colleagues, and certainly to those not only that we know and love, but those that we just know, because the world has to shift its focus from all of the things we've just talked about that's not working to this new way of thinking in terms of resolving leaky syndrome and creating health in the entire body. That's the future. I love the way you said it, Laura. Like we've talked so many times about getting rid of processed foods, but yeah, that's even accelerated. It's a processed world. You're right. It's moving more and more that direction at like a rapid pace. And so we, on one hand, want to use all the latest, greatest science and technology and AI because it's incredibly valuable for all of us, and none less so than Laura and I in our practices. But at the same time, take a step back and embrace the things from the past that we let go of that really did work very well and will still work very well today. Things like slowing down a little bit, slowing your breathing down a little bit, and laughing, laughing with those that you love. We don't even talk about that in healthcare anymore. We say, manage your stress. Okay, cope with stress. That's ridiculous advice, right? We need real strategies. Like, what does that mean in a day-to-day basis? And so we have those answers. And that's why we want to expand our reach, and we want you to follow us and learn more. And we have a lot more to say about leaky syndrome, about creating health, about cellular health, about the human body as an entire system, and how you can have the life you deserve now and that you want now. And most importantly, plan now for the end of life so that you can live as long as you want and be just as active and just as functional, just as cognitively intact, if you will, able to do your favorite thing. That would be the ideal. And if you plan for it now, you can be doing your favorite thing with your last breath at age, I don't know, you can pick it. I used to say 90, then I said 95. Okay, all right, I'm going to live to be 100. And now with our colleagues that we're, engaged with on a regular basis that have their finger on the pulse, as do we now in terms of age reversal medicine and longevity medicine, it seems very realistic that we have the technology to live a very vibrantly healthy life to 120 at least. So my cardiology friend that has now become a longevity expert and has published on it and has courses on it as well, he keeps moving his age up. So he went to 120. First he said 100 is the new 30. Then he says, no, I'm going to live to 120. So what's 120 going to be? I don't know, the new 40. And so now he's saying 145. So, I can't let him live any longer than I do. So I don't know. We'll see what we'll see what happens, Laura. But it's an exciting time to be alive. We're just happy to be a part of it.
Well, and that's the whole biohacking era that we're in. I mean, they're saying 180. I mean, yeah, that's the biohacking world. And I think these strategies and techniques, and really what we're talking about is a leaky syndrome solution. What's the solution to that? And being able to apply these solutions and going back to what works, like you said, not losing some of the fundamentals, but adding in also these new strategies and techniques that we have out there. I think it's just fascinating. And I hope we all can live to the biohacking world goal of 180.
I do too. And doing our favorite thing on that last day and last breath.